if being a musician is something that you really, really want, then one day, regardless of what choices you make, you will find yourself back on the doorstep of, do I want to be a musician? If you don't answer it when you're 5, it'll come back when you're 45.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sum of Everything podcast, where we discuss a little bit of a lot of topics. I'm your host, Aishwarya, and today is not a solo episode. For the first time in season 2, we have a very special guest. And this person is someone I consider a very, very dear friend. And on most days, she's just a little sister that I bully, mostly around shopping and makeup. But this one is so much more than that. My dear friend, Wessa. Hi, Wessa. Um,
Hello. Thank you for having me, Aishwarya.
Thank you for coming. I have to tell our guests a little bit about who you are. So we're doing a series on the life of a creative and how a creative person, a person pursuing a creative career goes on and lives their life basically, and what drives them. And I couldn't think of anyone better than Wessa to start off this series because if you know Wessa, you know that she's an amazing singer and songwriter and basically a lifelong musician. She's been composing and arranging and working on her craft for over 20 years. And that's almost pretty much how old she is, by the way. And she is also she's also studied music and has studied every singing technique, mind you, from Indian classical to opera, and has come to the conclusion that her home is a beautiful mix of soul, musical theater, jazz, and pop styles. So welcome, Wessa. So
Um,
tell us a little
is
bit about you.
Oh, me? Yeah, absolutely. Well, Aishu covered it. I call her Aishu, by the way. Um, and it's so cool to be here. It's so cool to be a part of this beautiful thing that Aishu's doing. And she's asked me to speak about myself, and I immediately deferred and took it back to her, which is kind of the main thing that I do. I'm really bad at accepting compliments or keeping the topic on me for too long. But I am a musician, a singer, songwriter, composer, and arranger, and I am finally not studying for the first time in my life, and it feels pretty cool. Um, I am currently a working musician, a contracting arranger, a teacher, and also making my own music, of course. So life is fun. Life is hard, um, but it's pretty great.
I'm so glad you agreed to do this, Wes, because it's not easy and it's not every day that you see people from our kinds of backgrounds doing something creative and pursuing a creative career with the kind of ease and grace that I've seen you do. So, just to start off, right? I know you've been doing music your pretty much your entire life, but
Mhm.
when did you ever have a moment where you were like, okay, music is it? This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. When was that?
That's a great question. The thing is, I was sort of scouted by my own family, by my mother, I think, more than anybody else. She saw in me a talent from a very young age. Apparently, she she had gotten my brother vocal lessons like ages ago when we were both very young, and uh, he was my idol, still is, and so I would very often sit in on everything he was doing. And so apparently I wouldn't leave him alone during vocal lessons either. I would go and watch his vocal lessons, and my brother is a brilliant man. A singer, he is not. So very very often.
The fact that I know him, because when you said he got vocal lessons, I said, really? Yeah, he
Yeah, I
must be
know.
a great, great person, but
Great guy.
I've never heard him sing.
Can't sing. Can't sing. So he was hating his vocal lessons, but I was apparently having a great time. And one day I ended up singing to my mother something that his vocal teacher was teaching him, and I was smashing it. I was singing just I was singing laps around my brother, and and my mother was like, "Ah, okay, so I'm wasting these classes on the wrong person." And from then on, I think for the first, I would say about a few years, and this is, I want to say this is back when I was 3, because this is around the time that my mother would tell the story. But from then on, for at least about 5 to maybe I want to say 6 years, it was really my mother leading my vocal lessons and my training, because I, as a child, obviously was a rascal and I refused to practice and I refused to be pegged down. I refused to sit in routine. So I hated it. But I think I personally had a moment, and I think this is when I was very young. I can't remember which age. I want to say around 7 or 8, when I personally realized that I do really love this. And I love it because it feels amazing to open my mouth and for this wonderful sound to come out. This sound that makes people stop, look at me, listen, and it was a really, really powerful thing to sit in, that magic of the music. And even at that age, I felt that. And so I think around that time is when I decided to actually start making an effort and practicing by myself.
Very interesting because it definitely reminds me of myself where I refuse to practice dance outside
Yeah.
of dance
Yeah.
class. But then I see that you did something that I definitely didn't do, which is to give myself the motivation that because I loved it so much, I
Yeah.
really should work more at my craft, right? I have, let me take you deeper into that. Let me ask you, did you see anybody around you doing something like this professionally, or what gave you the idea that you could actually do something and make a career out of this? Because if you, well, growing up in a normal middle class Indian household, when you say things like, oh, I want to be a musician, it's not taken as supporting, like as
Yeah.
supportively. Like, people are not as supportive about this as
No.
if when you say you want to become an engineer or a doctor or anything else, right? Like
Yeah.
a more secure, more stable, more
Yeah.
mainstream career. So
Yes.
did you see someone doing it professionally around you and that's what, gave you the confidence, or your family supported you or fought you? What was it like?
Um, I think the moment you asked me this, I have these thoughts, these memories. And for me, there's two very clear artists that I can think of. And the first one I want to say is, I don't even know if I knew her name at the time, but she was really inspiring to me even as a child. It was Sunidhi Chauhan,
Mhm.
a female Bollywood vocalist.
Powerhouse vocals. Yeah.
Freaking insane. My God, that
Yeah.
woman, she has a voice that could fill like 17 arenas with no mic. She's amazing. And I remember as a child, I would really enjoy singing a lot of her songs, but I don't think I specifically knew her name, or I just wouldn't remember it. But I
Hmm.
did love her music. And then also, I was lucky enough that I had a childhood where my family, my parents would like allow me to listen and love all kinds of music. And so, and this is, I'll own it, this is dated, but I was a huge Hannah Montana fan. And
Oh my God, me too. I really
I
love
loved
her.
her.
Yeah.
She was amazing.
And excuse me, but Miley Cyrus, again, powerhouse vocals.
Powerhouse.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yes, you can already see I was being drawn towards the louder women as a child as well, and I was just like, I loved her music, I loved her albums. I used to, when we used to get CDs and they used to come with the little CD cover and it had her, like, face on it, I would take
Yeah.
those out, and I had this entire collage of just those and cutouts of her, like, body
Oh my God.
on my, what's it called, like, shelf or something. And oh my God, it was on my wardrobe, yes. And so I loved her, and I think she was one of my first concepts of a child, essentially, being a
Hmm.
working musician, being a performer on stage. And I think she was one of the first, um times that I could sort of conceptualize the idea of being a child, but also being, you know, a performer on stage, and then how those worlds collided. And obviously, a big part of me was like, oh my God, how could I do that? And I think that's, I think Sunidhi Chauhan was more of a vocal like inspiration. Hannah Montana was more of a, this could be a personality, this could be a lifestyle inspiration.
Mm. Very, very interesting. And I'm glad you brought out inspirations who were more a one of them definitely like Indian, being that we grew up on a lot of Bollywood music,
Yes.
and
Yes.
those were the people that we looked up to. And I think Hannah Montana came a little bit later.
Yeah.
At least I was close to preteens around when Hannah Montana started airing.
Yeah.
But these are very impressionable ages. Um, Now, you said your family helped you, like allowed you to listen to all kinds of music, which is true. Similarly, with my family, very open about the kind of music and dance and creativity that is allowed to flow in the house. But how
Yeah.
do you translate that from a mere hobby to telling your parents that this is what you want to do as a career? Like this is what you're going to bet your life on.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's a very subjective question because it completely depends on what kind of family you're born into in the first place, where you are in the world, what kind of opportunities you have. But in my specific case, I think because I showed an aptitude for it from a very young age, um, I was very lucky that my parents decided to put money into that and
Mm.
put me into training from a very young age. They tried me out with a lot of different vocal mentors, and apparently as a child, I would tell them that this teacher doesn't know anything. She can't teach me what I need, and I would just dismiss teachers.
I
And
think that's a really good attitude to have. Like,
yeah,
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 sure. I mean, you're great, but you can't teach me anything.
yeah,
Like, I already
exactly.
am. I'm above that. You're great. Yeah, fair enough.
Oh
I
my
believe
god.
that of you. Honestly, I believe that.
Yeah.
Like, so you're.
I just knew what I needed from a very young age, even then, and I
Mm,
didn't know how to verbalize that. I just knew what I
mm,
needed, and so my parents did help me with that. But obviously, over the years, my passion for it did develop, but it developed towards a specific style of music. I could
mm-hmm,
feel myself being more drawn to Western classical music, Western styles of music, and I think that was a combination of me not understanding Hindustani classical in my bones, me not being
mm-hmm,
able to modulate my voice that way, and
mm-hmm.
also me not having the most healthy mentors. We did, you know, eventually find someone that I went into a guru shishya parampara with,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically a very strong bond that Hindustani classical students have to have with their teachers, and
Yes,
it's more than just a weekly lesson. It's a
correct,
lifestyle. You end up having to
correct.
live with them, you end up having to train with them, travel with them, and if they are good people, if they're good mentors, that's amazing. I unfortunately was not in that situation,
Mm,
and I think that the the abuse that I was dealing with those teachers had a big hand in like my love for that music going away,
mm-hmm,
because I think a lot of Indian students, Indian people will understand this, but also I just think a lot of people in the world who are in very disciplined arts, such as singing, dancing, ballet, theater, what have you, we all understand this. And I think it goes beyond that as well. I would say that this goes to like athletes, gymnasts. We
mm-hmm.
all have this very crazy relationship with our art where it needs and
Yeah,
it demands so much of us. And so many adults in the world know how to take advantage of that in students that are extremely talented. And the devastating side effect of that is that it can make you lose um, any love that you have for your talent. And so that is to bring that back to the reason, one of the reasons why I think I started finding myself falling more in love with a different style of music, maybe at the time even rebelliously, you know, but it stuck. And so because it stuck, at one point I had to have a very serious conversation with my mother, and she was like, "Do you want this? Do you really want this? Because if you do, then we're going to pull you out of school. We're going to start homeschooling, and we are going to spend 80% of our time practicing." And I said, "I want this."
Okay, this is
Yeah.
very interesting. So you're telling me that you, and this is something I don't know about you, Essa. So is that like, you're telling me that you were homeschooled so that you could spend the maximum of your time um, devoting it to music?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did I never know this? We've known each other years at this point.
Yeah, see how I don't talk about a lot of stuff?
Yeah. No, but I what I do know is that you ended up going to a school to study music very,
Mhm.
very young. So
Yes.
talk to us about that. How what was it
Yeah.
like to be away from family and um, devote your entire time to studying music as one would to a degree, right? Because that's effectively what you did. And
Yeah.
how did it go on from there? Like, what also, you do arranging and background scoring, right?
Yeah.
So, how did you end up wanting to do that aspect of music as opposed to something more what we consider mainstream, which is singing
Yeah.
and performing, which is something that you do anyway, but then this is also a really big aspect of your career.
Those are some massive questions. I'm gonna have to cliff notes them.
Yeah, okay.
So so very quickly, the passage of my life, from, like, what I can remember, because I've also blocked out a lot of my childhood. But, um but I remember that once I started homeschooling, all of my time was dedicated to practice and training. And I want to credit one of my first teachers in Western music, Father Vincent, Vincent D'Souza from the Xavier School of Performing Arts. I loved that man, but I was so scared of him, and I love him now, but I hated him then, and that's the mark of a good teacher. He was amazing, and yeah, just so much love to him. And from then on, I think a lot of my time was dedicated to that. And it took a while to actually pay attention to studying once I started homeschooling, but I realized, well, actually, I have to do this as well. Um, and I was trying to work through that. And I think I had sort of started to create a balance of my life between homeschooling, study, and training. And then we had to move to London,
Mhm.
and that came out of nowhere, and I really didn't know what to do with my career from then on. I didn't know what to do, where to go, and so, kind of without telling my family, I decided to apply to a couple of schools, and I applied to the Trinity Conservatoire of Music in London. I was definitely too young, but they had a junior diploma program at the time, and I got accepted. I got offered an audition, and so we went, and I had my audition, and I got accepted to the program, and it was amazing. It was, like, such an honor. And from then on, my London, Europe chapter began. I had a lot of studying to do at a crazy level at a very young age, surrounded by a lot of people who were, like, around the same age and then a lot older.
Mhm.
And so it was extremely surreal and extremely overwhelming, but I learned so much, and I would like to shout out my mentors there, Sarah Vivian, who was one of the most amazing and, again, terrifying operatic vocal teachers. You have to be terrifying as a teacher. What's up with not being scary anymore as teachers, guys? Come on, come on. But yeah, she was amazing. And I learned so much. I performed in some of the greatest locations in all of England. I've performed at Royal Albert Hall. That was insane. I thought I would just burn up on entry, but I didn't. And it was amazing. And I did all of that, and then I ended up coming back to India like just before COVID hit, and then I got stuck during COVID. But I think it was pretty ideal because as a young student, having just finished a diploma, I was a bit burnt out. And so during COVID, I was able to actually look at my voice and see what I had learned and, see what I had become. I started doing Zoom concerts at the time. I started
Mm.
teaching.
And
It
which is
was
how we met because
I
I
know
met my
that's how we
sister
met.
through that. Yeah.
Exactly. I met one of the best people in my life during COVID, and, that's Ananya. Shout out to Ananya here.
Yeah.
And then I met you, and that time was pretty crazy, but I still think it was something that I needed,
Hmm.
because that's kind of when my concept of being a working musician became a career path because I had to find my voice on social media. I had to do all of that. And I did really become a rat in the race of the social media game for a while because there was nothing else to do during COVID. Um, but it was another really interesting part of being a musician. And I think that's also where when I that was also where I hit one of my first like creative blocks.
Hmm.
And like we can come back to that, but following that, I decided to get out of it by applying to continue my education in a couple of other places. Again, I didn't tell my family. I like to give my family good news, So I waited until I got accepted to a couple of different schools, and then I got accepted to the Berklee College of Music. I got accepted to the Australian Institute of Music. I got accepted to the Royal College of Music in London, and it was so exciting. And I had to go speak to my family, and I was like, "Where do I go?" And long story short, I ended up going to Australia, and now I'm in Australia, and I finished my degree in composition for film, and I am now a composer. I am an arranger. An arranger is someone who like writes the charts for big, long form
Mm.
orchestral productions, like 60 instruments, like massive stuff.
Wow.
And it's a lot of work, but it is a lot of fun. I found my love there, and I also found another love there. And now I'm living here. I'm making music. I'm getting married. It's all happening.
Oh my God, I know. Okay, you brought it up. So, you brought it up. So, firstly, congratulations. I can't wait
Thank
to,
you.
uh, go help you head on with the prep and stuff, which I am really looking forward
That's
to.
Aishwarya's like way of saying that she's invited to the wedding. So
Yes.
screw you guys.
Very excited. Very, very, really excited to be traveling all the way to Australia for your wedding
Me
and meeting
too.
your fiance and everyone else over there. But coming back to the music aspect of things, I did catch because I was not able to attend in person. I did catch your concert that you
Yeah.
did as part of your graduation thesis. I want to say, I
Yeah.
think that was that was the
Concept.
performance, right?
Yeah.
It
Yes.
was so amazing. It really blew my mind because not that I ever questioned or doubted your ability, but the fact that someone I know personally was able to write that, I was mind blown. So I want to ask you, talk to me about your the last performance that your last college performance, which was like your thesis, where you put
Yeah.
up an entire orchestra performance, and how did you go about writing that? How, like, walk me through that process.
Oh my god, the most stressful time of my life. It was amazing. It was beautiful. My final technically my final graduating recital was also my final examination, which is kind of cool that musicians get to do that as their final exam, but it was also just so freaking stressful. I decided to make my show into what I'm hoping to do. I wanted to show not just my professors but everyone that this is my caliber. So I decided to put together a 30-person orchestra, um, and I decided to perform 3 songs that I wrote, and arranged for a 30-person orchestra. And it was a massive undertaking. It was also something that I couldn't prepare ahead of time. I had to do it within the term that I was studying, obviously, because it was music creating during that last term, which means that which means that normally in the industry, you would have your music prepared way before you get musicians on board, you start doing rehearsals before you start budgeting things. But I had to do all of those things at the same time. I had to be writing my music, and I already had to lock in all of my musicians, start rehearsals, give them like half of the music that I had, and then keep going as I went. So that is not my preferred way to do things, and I hated it. but I had, and so it was an extremely stressful time, but I actually think that in a way that time helped me write that music better. And while I don't want to do it that way again, I loved what came out of me. The songs I wrote were, I think, the core foundation of me. I wrote this song called what's it called? Why do I only hear "Man, I Feel Like a Woman" by Shania Twain? That's fucking Shania Twain. Sorry. What's it called? Always a Woman. Always a Woman. Sorry. If I just curse, then she'll have to cut it out. Okay. One of the songs I wrote was called Always a Woman. And like the main lyric of that song is always a woman, never a girl. And it's something that I've felt my entire life. And it was kind of unreal to have these 30 something piece orchestra people understand my message and then sing it back to me, play it back to me. And it's a feeling that I'll never be able to describe, but oh, it was amazing. It was one of the best things I've ever been a part of. And um, the other song I wrote, which is called Stay, was sort of a message that I wrote to myself to tell myself to always, always believe in myself and stay positive and keep doing this thing, which is so hard to do. And no one, barely anyone out there is going to support you to keep doing it because it is so unrealistic. So yeah, putting all of that together, making those musicians perform for me, making sure that I worked hard enough so that I could pay every single one of my musicians in this crazy industry where so many of us get told to do it for the exposure. Screw that. I
Mhm.
knew that I wanted to make sure that I did this entire production exactly the way that I want to do every single production in my entire life. It was so hard, but it was amazing.
Man, that is so inspirational, especially because you said that two things, right? You talked about the song where that you wrote to motivate yourself to
Yeah.
keep you going on this
Yeah.
rather hard journey, and also the fact that you ensured that all of your musicians got paid as well, which
Yeah.
is, like you said, it's really hard, or it's not something people who are not at the highest level can
Mhm.
often afford to do. So, like,
100%.
that is amazing. Kudos,
Yes. And
Wessa.
also just to like point that out, that is not to say that like all students should be guilt tripped into paying. Like student life is insane. And
Mm.
like the only reason I was able to do that is because I saved up and I planned for this ages in advance. So I had been working with that set aside, and I also had an amazing support system at the time in the shape of my partner. All of those things have to happen for you to be in a place where you can pay 30 musicians. So it's not something that can always happen. But aside from just paying my musicians, I always also remembered to treat them with gratitude and respect because that is also a massive form of payment. I didn't just tell myself, well, I'm paying them, so they'll just have to do what I want. I think the monetary gratitude that I gave to them was very much an additional like bonus for all of my musicians because they were all treated beautifully, and I have this on paper. That's why I can say it. They
I
said it.
believe you.
Thank you. Thank you. They were like, "Oh, Wes is so nice to us." Okay,
Yeah,
so then
I
I'm gonna
don't need
repeat.
documentary evidence for me to know, or for me to convince other people that like Wessa is an amazing person and she's going to treat you really well and she's going to pay you if she tells you she's going to pay you, and all of that. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah,
need
thank you, thank you, thank
documentary
you.
evidence
T's
for
and
that.
C's apply. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Okay. But so I'm going to take you back a little bit because I found something very interesting that you said. You said a couple of things, right? Um, One is the fact that you were inspired to write your own music bases what you needed to hear.
Mhm.
And that's something that I hear in both of your songs, right? Always a woman, never a girl. It's something that you needed to hear that,
Yeah.
and it came from you. Similarly with Stay, which is again something that you were trying to write to motivate yourself, right?
Mhm.
But then you also said that the fact that you decided to pay your musicians is something that you had planned well in advance. So that's two sides to
Mhm.
this. What I want to ask you is how much of your career as a musician or any career in creativity, how much of it is inspiration and how much of it is discipline?
Mm. Ooh. Um, I think that the discipline only exists because of the inspiration. Because I don't always have the same level of discipline. My discipline towards myself goes up and down,
Mhm.
um, depending on how inspired I'm feeling at that time in my life. And I have definitely felt like some of the lowest lows of my life, um, when I haven't been feeling inspired because just the reality of life is so, so heavy on me. And I think it's
Mhm.
very hard to consistently find the magic and the inspiration of music, while life is knocking you down. And in those moments, I feel like my discipline takes a hit, even though the idea of discipline is that you are disciplined enough to keep going, to keep practicing, to keep doing your thing. But
Mm.
I think that in those moments, because so much of my life is completely dependent on me, um, that discipline also wavers. So I don't know if this is the same for other musicians in the world. I know some musicians who are like stones, like they are so disciplined. They will never waver from their routine. And I know other musicians that just cannot live on routine. They cannot do the disciplined thing. They're just their minds are too crazy, they're all over the place, but they do their thing. So I just do not think that there is one right way to do this. I just think that no, the more inspired you are as a human being, the more you'll find yourself wanting to do whatever the hell it is that you're doing. And that becomes a form of discipline when you turn it into a routine, when you turn it into a lifestyle.
Okay, very interesting. I mean, I'll tell you something. It really helps someone like me because I find it really hard to stick to a routine.
Yeah.
And then I end up guilting myself into trying to wake up early and be consistent about it when consistency is just not what I am wired to do. I'm not
Mhm.
meant to wake up at the same time day after day and follow a single routine. That's
Yes.
just not how my body works.
Yes.
And that's also, I would argue, not how creativity works because
Yes.
you can't mm, practice yourself into creating. You can practice your craft, but I don't know if you can practice yourself into imagining the creativity coming out of you in like, I don't
Yes.
know.
1000%. I think that routine is very different from having the discipline to make something of your talent. Those are two different things because I think
Mm-hmm.
routine has very often, especially coming from an Indian classical background, routine has constantly been like put on the same weighing scale as discipline. It's like the more disciplined you are, the more you will do your practice at exactly this time for this many hours every single day. And that's something that I was forced to do as a child. My routine was before going to school when I was going to school, I'd have to wake up at least an hour in
Mm-hmm.
advance and then just sit and practice one note for that entire hour to create note stability, note sustenance. Now, I'm not saying that that didn't help me create amazing vocal control today, but that was something that I could not do by myself today. That was my parents forcing me to wake up at 5 a.m. and do that, right? Today, I don't wake up at 5 a.m. and do that because I can't follow that routine. It's not a part of my biological makeup.
Mm-hmm.
That does not mean that I am not disciplined in my craft. And it does not mean that I don't care enough. It just means that my ability to define my discipline comes out in the way that I take care of my voice. It comes out in the way that I write something down when I think of it and then promise myself that I will come back to it. My discipline comes out the moment that I know that I heard something and I need to fix that run right now. So then I just start singing it over and over again at work, wherever the hell I am. That is my discipline. And that's my
Mm,
definition of it. And I don't know if it'll ever make sense to anybody else. I don't know if anyone's definition of discipline has to make sense. But we know that it works when we see it come out in the beautiful things that we make.
that's really well said. That's very, very nice. And a lot of food for thought as well, because I guess it's about uh, separating routine from what one would consider um, the right way to do things. And
Yeah,
the right way to do things would differ from person to person. A routine, of
yes,
course, would be similar for everyday purposes, but a
yeah,
routine does not necessarily mean creativity, and
yeah, and that's
a
why I say
discipline
that,
does
like,
not mean
the
routine.
inspiration has to hit because I feel inspired to write something or I feel inspired to get that run right. That's an inspiration thing, and
Mm,
maybe I might feel inspired to settle in a routine. Maybe. You know, I recently tried to do a new thing. I've put like a nighttime routine thing up on my fridge because normally I just try to remember this stuff off the top of my head. There's a few things I need to do to help protect my voice. And
mhm,
I've written it down and I put it up on my fridge.
mhm.
This is my second night. Let's see how it goes.
I will check in on you.
Thank you.
Maybe a couple of weeks later, I will check in on you and ask how your night
Yes,
routine's going.
thank you. I would appreciate that. Let's see how it
um,
goes.
yeah. But okay, so going off of the conversation about routine and discipline, do you think, and we talked about creative blocks earlier, do you think that a routine can potentially prevent a creative block, or a discipline could get you out of one? How do you think? And when do you experience creative blocks? How do you get out of them?
That's a great question. Um, I've been told by several teachers in my past that if you are disciplined, then you will just do your routine and that's going to help you come out of your creative block. Write some lines every single night. Get your journal, keep writing
Mm,
or do your
mm,
exercises and the more you do your exercises suddenly you'll find a line or a run in there that's going to inspire you. Okay, it doesn't work for everyone that way and
mm,
it's never worked for me that way.
mm,
Um I'll try to sing something. I'll try it again. I'll try it again. I'll try it again. And all that's happening to me is kind of the same as when I go clothes shopping and after I've tried on my third dress, now I just want to go home because I feel horrible. I would
Feels
like
like a
to,
personal
yeah.
attack.
Yeah. This is a personal attack, Aishwarya, because when I say no, no means no. I don't want to try on another clothes.
Okay, it worked. When I asked you to try on stuff, it worked.
I burned that lenga. Okay.
Then, yeah, no, you look stunning, but also that was the fastest I've ever seen anyone settle
Shop?
on a lehenga,
Yes,
but
I know.
coming back.
the point is the point is that I don't think it works that way. I don't think
Mm,
that if I just keep sitting there and forcing myself to not be blocked, I
mm,
just somehow will magically become unblocked. Um, I think that in different seasons of my life, what has helped me come out of my block has been different. I think 2 years ago, what helped me come out of my block was singing in a stairwell at my university. That stairwell was amazing, and every time I sang there, I felt inspired to sing something new. Maybe it was just the reverb. I was just like, ah, and I was like, ooh, you know what I mean?
mm.
And then I was able to write. And then that stopped working, and I did find myself in a block because um, a lot of different things in life were making it hard for me to feel creative. But then I met someone, and that became a creative unblocking, and that was amazing. I don't think that it would always work, but in that one scenario, that one point in my life, something about him was so interesting that I felt I had to write about it. And at the time, I didn't even know that I was writing about him, but I was. And so that helped me come out of my block. And most recently, at the beginning of this year, I started journaling again because last year I was in a pretty big block. And I haven't journaled in a long time.
Mm.
And I started journaling at the beginning of this year. I'm already halfway through my second journal, and it has just been full of just lyrics and love and pain and curse words and like just wine spillage and just so much experience.
Mm.
And it's been amazing. And I feel unblocked. And being unblocked isn't an amazing feeling all the time, by the way. Sometimes being unblocked is also very anxiety inducing because now I'm
Mhm.
unblocked, which means I have to write. And it's like I have all these thoughts and feelings, and now I need to just sit and make my music because I want to.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, this is so interesting. And what I take away from this is that, of course, there are different ways to unblock yourself. And you never know. Sometimes it could be as something as simple as singing in a stairwell,
Yep.
and you never know when you'll find inspiration again. Um, and to that, you said that you wrote something a couple of years ago because you were inspired by somebody you met. Is
Hmm.
that about your latest song?
It is. Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
gosh, tell us about
Yes.
your latest song.
What a segue. It's called
What a
segue.
sagoo.
It's called segue. I know how it's pronounced, guys, but I
Sure.
like mispronouncing words for fun. Thank you very much. Um, so on that segue, um, this song is called June, and I called it June because I wrote it in June. I'm a simple girl. I have simple
Mhm,
needs. And this was back when I was doing a class. I was doing a performers ensemble class with my
okay.
now fiance Riley, at the time just homie. Um, in our class, we had about four other musicians, and the idea was that we all needed to put together a set list to perform on our final night. Every term was examinations in form of like performances, um,
Mhm,
and so it's every introvert's nightmare. And unfortunately, a lot of musicians are introverts, so I would end up becoming the de facto leader of most ensembles.
mhm,
And so for this ensemble, we all decided to come up with either originals or um, just songs that we wanted to cover. And since I was a composition student, I decided to write an original song. And I wrote this song and I brought it to the class and I sang it for everybody, including our teacher, Nick Brown. Shout out to Nick Brown. And everyone in class, they just sat and watched and listened. And I don't even remember, but I think everyone just really quietly smiled and said, that's that's great. That's beautiful. And it sort of became a conversation from there and we started adding the instruments and I started like, you know, arranging it so it became less, romantic in that moment and more just we need to do this. But now I know, having been told by my friends in that class at the time that quote, dude, there was so much sexual tension in that room.
Oh my god. Oh my
To
god.
be fair,
Okay.
I gave him like a Californian, like American accent, but it's not what he sounded like. It was more like, "Oh mate, that was like awkward," but it was it was
Oh my god.
completely
Okay.
completely unknown to me that I was writing about Riley, my partner, but I
Mhm,
was. My partner was not available at the time, and
mhm,
so I was writing about the binds of relationships and what they do and how we feel drawn towards people and how someone can be drawn to someone else and you can be drawn to them. And now that I think about it, how did I not know that I was
Um,
listen, I'm slow.
yeah.
Um, but
I think I
yeah,
got to it
we
telling you before your
yes,
mind finally caught up with it. Yeah.
yes, yeah, it really was. But I think I was very aggressively trying not to be attracted to men, and so I was like, no. But um, but we performed that song live that that year. That was 2023, I want to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in June, it was one of the first times I think I saw the ensemble really play with each other
Mm-hmm.
instrumentally, and it was magic. 3 years later, June is out. And look, it would have been out last year, but I missed the cutoff, and then July happened, and I was like, well, I can't release June in July. So then I just waited a whole year. Don't name your songs after months, is what I've learned.
Okay, so we would have been graced with the song a whole year in advance if it
Yes.
wasn't for Wessa and her weird way of doing things. So, but the song, the beautiful, beautiful song, is out on all streaming platforms. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and it will be linked in the show notes below. So please go give it a listen and go like that song because it's beautiful and listen to it all over again and then
Yes,
again
please.
and then again. Also, I think a music video is coming out soon for June.
Yes. Yes, yes. We've got a music video coming out. It's so exciting. It's the first time that I've got like dancers to my music. It's insane. It's so beautiful. Shout out to Natalie Ingram and Hugo Poulet. They are fabulous. I cannot wait to show you. It should be coming out. I don't have a date for you because I was supposed to edit and get it done this week, and then I fell sick because I was, dancing around in a summer dress at the music video, and it is about 3 degrees right now in Melbourne. So it should be out soon. Next week, maybe. Week after that, maybe. But you watch this space.
Yes, and once it's out, I will ensure that I've linked it in the show notes below as well.
Thank
So,
you.
um, that is something that you can look forward to. If you're not watching immediately, then it will already have come out by the time you watch this. So then, please do go and watch the music video and give support to our Vesa. Okay, so now we have a very interesting segment that I am going to play with you. We're going to have a
Ooh.
rapid fire round.
Okay, I'm ready.
And very, very inspired by Coffee with Karan, of course.
Of course. Of course. He did it
But
first,
the
guys.
questions, I promise you, are going to be less incendiary.
Thank
We're
you.
not gonna.
That's
We're not
so
gonna go.
nice.
And you don't win anything except my love and gratitude.
I
But
appreciate that.
yeah. Okay, so are you ready? And really, the first thing that comes to
Okay.
mind. Okay.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Now we will keep in mind that you are also a background scorer.
Yes. Yes.
And arranger. So, um, keeping all of that in mind, right?
Yes.
Okay. So first thing, one film score that you think everybody should listen to.
Gladiator.
Ooh, Gladiator. Okay.
By Hans Zimmer.
I think that answers the question that I was going to ask. Why Gladiator?
Okay.
Yes, fine. Hans Zimmer. Got it. Okay. A composer that you think deserves more recognition.
Oh. Hildur Gudnadottir, who is an amazing composer. She's received an Oscar, so people have heard her, but I think people need to listen to her more. She is fabulous. She is a cellist, and then from there she scores her amazing films.
What is an instrument that best represents your personality?
Piano, because I got a lot of
Piano?
keys, and you got to touch them all. It's true.
Got it. Okay, although I know the answer to this already. Coffee or silence while composing?
Coffee and silence.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Like,
Yes.
Okay, earphones or studio monitors?
Earphones. I have a lot of when it's like live, even though it's better. Technically, studio monitors are better, but earphones.
Mm-hmm. Okay, morning or midnight creativity?
Morning. I am not a nighttime person. I'm sleepy already.
Fair enough. Okay. Um, one sound you wish existed.
The sound? Oh God, that's so interesting. That's a great question. One sound I wish existed? The sound of human beings when we finish a book and we close it and we hold it. That sound. I don't know what sound that is, but that sound.
Oh my God,
Yes.
that's so poetic.
Yes.
I feel like you should write a song about that.
Okay. I'll
Okay,
do
got it.
it.
Okay. But imagine how crazy that would be. Like, you could record the flipping of pages
Yes.
and,
Oh my gosh.
oh, interesting.
Copyright,
That
Wessa.
you can't copyright that, but that is a different episode.
Damn it.
Okay. Um. Ooh, one movie you'd love to rescore.
Oh God. Oh, Monsters Inc.
Why Monsters Inc?
Because I actually did rescore a scene from Monsters Inc. for university, and then I got very obsessed with the score of Monsters Inc. And I would love to rescore it because there's so many things that I could do with it, but not to do them better. I don't know if they would be better, but just I want to touch it. I want to touch Monsters Inc. all over.
Got it. Okay, that's a great answer. Okay. One myth about musicians.
That we all need to be drunk in order to make music or perform. It's not
Ah,
true.
good one.
Um, Alcohol dependency is not cool, kids. And so many musicians today do what they do and respect their voices and their bodies so much more than they used to show us. And so, yeah, that's a myth.
Awesome. Really, really nice answer. Okay. Okay, I think we've come to the end of the
Yay!
rapid fire round. Yeah, well
Yay! Did
done,
I
Wessa.
do
You
well?
did
Oh,
good.
thank you.
Yeah.
That was stressful.
And you won a lot of my love and gratitude. So congratulations on that prize.
Yay! That's amazing. Thank you. It's really nice for love to be validated, you know? I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, babe. I love and gratitude you too.
Sure, you love and gratitude me too. Okay. Okay. Um anyway, so what are your future plans? What are you working on?
I'm very excited because my goal for before the end of this year is to do a headliner show, and take the songs that I have released and perform them live with some really trusted musicians, and then add on a whole bunch of original songs that no one has heard yet. It's really scary. So if everyone could help me manifest that, that would be amazing. I do think I have a lot of um stage fright, but not of the stage, but of the process of getting to the stage. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I really want to do this. And I'm just going to work really hard and try my best to make it happen. And if not this year, then next, because the one thing that I'm accepting as this part of my life is that there is no deadline because the earth just keeps on spinning. And if I don't do it now, I'll do it later.
I love that. I love that because I think too many of us spend too
Yeah.
long worrying about the fact that the time has passed us
Yes.
by and that we can't catch up. And
Yes.
it's something that I keep reminding myself that there
Yes.
is no right time to start, or the right time is now.
Yeah,
Any
that's the
time is the
myth
right time,
that
right?
should be busted, but not just for musicians, for everyone in the world.
Okay, awesome. All right. So now one last question for you,
Okay.
Wes. If there's someone watching this who is secretly wanting to pursue a music career or a creative career but doesn't have the courage to do so, what would you tell them?
If you really want it, then it'll happen with or without your help.
Okay, that's that's really powerful. If you really want it, then it'll happen one way or the other. Yeah.
I believe in a pretty wacky concept of just the universe and stuff that has to happen has already happened and will
Yeah.
continue to happen. So
Mm.
if being a musician is something that you really, really want, then one day, regardless of what choices you make, you will find yourself back on the doorstep of, do I want to be a musician? If you don't answer it when you're 5, it'll come back when you're 45.
That's brilliant. And honestly, I can't say anything to top that. So we will end the episode here. Thank you so much, Wessa, for agreeing to do this, for being a part of Some of Everything. And I am super, super, super grateful that you decided to come and answer all of these unending questions that I asked you.
Oh my God,
So,
Aishwarya, thank you so much. You have the most beautiful ability to draw out questions and answers from people. And I think you should please, please do this more. Please talk to more people. Please use your voice more. It's so beautiful. Thank you.
thank you. All right. And viewers, thank you so much for joining us, watching this episode. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.